Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Fish Bites, the Miami Herald's Miami Marlins podcast. I'm Jordan McPherson. He's Andre Fernandez. And Dre, to quote an old boys man, boys to men, we've come to the end of the road.
Yes, we have. And I was going to go even further. I'm glad you took it to boys to men, because when you wrote to me the end is here, I was like, I had Sinatra going in my head, but that's good. You brought it a little closer to the present. Not completely close to the present, but closer.
Yeah. Yep. And what a season it's been. However you want to interpret that, everyone. However you want to interpret that, everyone.
What a season it's not been. Oh man, I mean, eventful to a point, but yeah. I mean, all I'm saying is they better not cling to the fact that it's one win better than last year.
No, they better not. Again, yeah, at this point, the worst the Marlins can do is 94 losses with 2 games left at the time of this recording. But remember back in right around July 4th when this team was 1 game under 500? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Good times. Good times. Yeah, but on a serious note, let's get into where everything is. And again, we know the Marlins playoffs, so they've been done for a while now. But this last week, they've made an impact on the playoff race itself, even though they have basically zero impact or zero fight in the race. Look at what they did this last road trip. They split with New York, losing the second game in extra innings by 1 run. They took 3 of 4 against the Milwaukee Brewers, who went from being just behind the Philadelphia Phillies for the final wild card spot to them being eliminated and the Marlins' 3 wins essentially clinching the playoffs for the Padres and the Phillies. And now with this last series, with the Mets and the Braves still fighting for the NL East and the first round bye, especially after Atlanta with a hell of a weekend sweep of the Mets to jump back in the first. Braves only need 1 win or 1 Mets loss to take the East. Marlins took game 1 against the Braves 4-0. Mets game got postponed. So as of the time of this recording, the Marlins still technically can help with the say in who wins the NL East over these final 2 games.
Well, they have to make it up to all those Mets fans that they sent that desperation plea out to show up at the ballpark, right? I mean, they gotta. Oh, yeah. That's the least they could do if they're going up to New York and winning those 2 and getting them all riled up. I mean, it would be funny. It would definitely be funny, pretty, if they were to pull something like this off. But I have a funny feeling that later today, meaning Tuesday, you might hear a roar from the right-hand side of the dugout area, from the right-hand side of the stadium. I'm sorry, from the visiting dugout area,
first base side,
like around the second, third inning around there. If the Washington Nationals decide to become an irritant themselves. You might hear a pretty excited visiting dugout today around the second or third inning. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, with the Mets-Nationals game on Monday being postponed, Mets and Nationals are playing a doubleheader. First game starting at 4 o'clock. And with that, if the Nationals do beat the Mets, then the Braves have the division locked up regardless of what happens in Miami. So Miami game starts at about 6:40. So we will have probably an idea of whether or not everything will be decided by the second inning or if things will be continuing on. But to look through that, we've got a couple games left. This last week, the Marlins have shown basically what they were hoping to show all season. But again, the whole too little, too late, which we happen to see a lot lately. But one highlight, which we've highlighted all season, starting rotation, their final turn, been pretty incredible. I mean, you look at Sandy Alcantara. Obviously, he's been Sandy Alcantara all year. 8 innings, 1 run, albeit a 1-0 loss. The only loss the Marlins had in Milwaukee all last weekend, because Corbin Burns was 8 shutout innings. But Sandy, 8 innings, 1 run. Because the Marlins didn't have to pitch in the 9th, it was his 6th complete game. You look at the rest of the rotation. Pablo Lopez, who made every scheduled start this year, which was his goal, he throws 7 shutout innings. Jesus Luzardo last night, 6 shutout innings. Edward Cabrera had 3 no-hit innings before leaving with an ankle injury. Second time he injured his ankle in as many starts. But to see this group And again, we've talked about the starting rotation being their strength all year, but to see them through an entire turn, and then Braxton Garrett goes on Tuesday, but to see them through their entire final turn to do this, it just gives another reminder of A, what the Marlins are building around, and B, Marlins probably have some pretty good trade chips going to the offseason to get to their greater goal with going out on these high notes like this. I mean, Pablo, we've talked about the fact that he needed to finish the season strong if they didn't trade him, which, again, when they didn't trade him, and he did. His last 4 starts were all anywhere from 6 to 7 innings, I think he gave up 2 runs or fewer in 3 of those 4. Jesus Luzardo was at least 6 innings in, I believe, his last 4 or 5 starts. Trevor Rogers, obviously, the health in the down season hurts his value, but he's still a lefty with 4 years of team control and showed what he's able to do last year. And eventually the Marlins got to make a decision when they have basically 7 arms for 5 spots, plus guys in the wings. So this last week is kind of could work to the Marlins' benefit on that front at some point down the road.
Yeah, it's what you hope to see. If you're them, you hope that they've increased their stock a little bit more in some of these cases. But I would say like they're none of them are like home runs as far as like incredible trade chips. No, they're decent ones. Their starting pitching is always something that teams are looking for, obviously. So yes, but there are still a lot of guys that in pretty much every case that you mentioned that have some question marks. I mean, Pablo with his injury history is still, teams are still going to look at the complete package, not just what he's done lately. Luzardo, it's better now because of what he's done. It would have been probably there's no chance at all before, but what he's done this year has at least put him back in the conversation. But again, is it a guarantee you're going to get something great for him? Not necessarily, because I think teams would want to see that more consistently from him. And of course, he's has his own injury history as well. So yes, it's a little better going into the offseason if you're thinking in those terms of maybe if he had to deal one of those guys. But your guaranteed get for anything would still be the man who's in contention for the Cy Young, which is obviously the one you don't want to move, the one you want to build around. So that's kind of the dilemma that they're in, where they're going to have to see what they can possibly get for a lot of these guys. And I'm not saying you can't get anything, but at the same time, it's not one of these high-end. None of them are one of these high-end arms that someone will be out there saying, okay, this guy is in major demand to that they're going to get incredible value for. You get what I'm saying? Like, That's something where, yes, it's improved a little bit in, to certain degrees, depending on which player, and you hope that they can get something for them. But again, that's I think big picture the dilemma this franchise has. They just don't have those guaranteed, in demand trade chips, I guess you could say, to really, really make the moves that can drastically get this team to where it wants to get to.
Yeah, and since you mentioned him, Sandy, season's officially done. He's not making his Wednesday start, much to the chagrin of many Mets fans hoping that this NL East race goes down to the final day. But with his numbers officially locked up, let's talk a Cy Young case. MLB leading 228 and 2/3 innings. First time anyone in MLB has thrown more than 228 1/3 innings since David Price threw 230 in 2016. Also, 8 2/3 innings shy of the Marlins single season franchise record. Throw that out there. Kevin Brown, 237 1/3 in 1997. 2.28 ERA, behind only Julio Urias, who has a 2.17 at the time of this podcast, who's only thrown 170 innings in 2 fewer starts than Sandy. 207 strikeouts, which makes him the first player in Marlins franchise history ever to have multiple 200 inning, 200 strikeout seasons, and just the first to have 200 in back-to-back seasons, period, since Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, and Jacob deGrom did so in 2018 and 2019. 6 complete games, which is, I believe, at the time of that I wrote his final start, there were 35 total complete games in baseball this year. Sandy threw 6 of them alone. Go ahead, Andre.
all those guys you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Common thread.
Yeah.
They've won one before.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Finish the resume. I'm just gonna. My answer is gonna be very simple.
Yeah. No, my answer is 2. I want to lead everybody to the answer that we all know is inevitable.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, 6 of MLB's 35 complete games have come from Sandy Alcantara's right arm, 17.1% from one pitcher, with 4 of those coming against teams who were in the playoff hunt: the Braves, the Cardinals, the Dodgers, and the Brewers. The other 2 were against the Reds, a complete game, a shutout, and the Nationals. And he also had another 9-inning game against the Nationals that wasn't a complete game.
Yeah.
Also in the top 10 among the National League with a 0.98 whip, 212 batting average against, 0.63 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and 4.14 strikeouts per walk. And with more than half of his innings coming against teams who are either in the playoffs or were in the playoff hunt when he faced them. Yeah, I don't think I need to say anything else. Give him the damn Cy Young. Case closed.
No, but yeah, I mean, yeah, case closed. I don't have to say anything else. I mean, to me, he got it with all the. I mean, look at the endurance. Look at the way he's done it against the competition. He's done it, and doing it on this team.
Yeah,
and doing it on this team. Everybody else is doing it on playoff teams or World Series contenders. He's doing it on this team. He's he's like the all county team when it's full of Central and Northwestern, and then you're like, wait, how did not to I'm gonna piss off whoever if someone's listening to it from that high school. I'm saying like, I don't know, Reagan High. Why is this guy? Because he had like 2,000 yards, and then he's like the player of the year. It's like that. There's always that one guy who has an incredible year and he's undeniable, even if he's on like a bad team. Yeah, no, there's no. Urias has had a great year. He's part of that great rotation for LA, but he hasn't done the kind of things that Sandy has. Complete games are, virtually extinct these days. Like you don't see them anymore that much, hardly ever, and he has 6 of them.
Yeah,
I mean, there's something to be said about
first guy since Chris Sale in 2016 to have at least 6.
Yeah, and throw out the numbers. I think there's something to be said about when you go out there and on this team where you go out there and you keep it going and you continue to pitch at an excellent level like he has, knowing you're not going to get the run support. Pretty much knowing, because night in and night out, this team wasn't scoring. There were big patches this year where it was like that, where how many 1-0 losses? I mean, he had one again the other night. Yeah. Even now that they're on a bit of a hot streak at the plate, but it's like that. There's something to be said by that continuing to go. How many pitchers do you see sometimes where that takes a toll after a while, even though they won't admit it and they won't? Obviously, they don't want to crap on their teammates, but it takes a toll mentally. And he's kept on. He's kept on. I mean, I think it's the All-Star starting thing was people made a stink over it, but I understood that you were in LA and all that stuff. But now this would be an injustice, I think, if he doesn't get it.
Yeah, and speaking of the lack of run support, that was one of the things. Got to talk with Mel Stoudemire Jr. on Saturday after they decided to shut Sandy down, not make his final start, and just one of his main summing up of Sandy, the direct quote, and it's going to be a little bit of a long quote because love Mel Stoudemire. He's very thoughtful and detailed. I'm so proud of who he's become. I've had a ringside seat. I've watched that work, that detailed, relentless work that he's putting in to be great. He's paid the ultimate sacrifice, and I can say this for all the starters. They've learned how to pitch with the pressure of knowing, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say this, there's probably not going to be a lot of runs. That's who we are. We play in a big ballpark. We have to pitch. We have to play defense. And so every pitch from our starters from the first pitch on means something. They know what it's like to pitch in tough games. That's important. They've learned that.
Big park, bad lineup at a lot of points this year. I mean, yeah, Mel cut it short right there of saying, going all the way and saying how much it was against them. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, you do that on this team, that alone is something. I mean, forget about, even before you dive into all the numbers you threw out there a minute ago. I mean, that's To me, there's no, it would shock me if he doesn't.
Agreed. Completely agreed. And now to quickly transition to what's next for us. Again, season ends Wednesday, but pretty sure starting Thursday, the real work's going to begin.
Yep.
Again, for the podcast purpose of the podcast, we're most likely not going to be doing every week during the off season. When there's news, when there's enough to warrant a full episode, we'll do podcasts. So probably every other week. Sometimes you'll be 2 weeks off, but we will be on just a little bit more sporadic than during the season when we have topics to talk about every week. But with that said, it's going to be a busy offseason. We all know that. We got the managerial search.
I was going to say the managerial search right off the bat begins. I mean, we already know, that's another thing we didn't mention so far in this episode, but, Donnie Baseball no longer, 2 more games. And like we said before on a previous one, wish him the best and whatever comes next for him. But yeah, we know he's not going to be there. So who takes this job? Because whoever takes this job he's going into a situation, let's just put it that way, where this team really needs to make some strides, needs to take some big strides and really do them this time properly, because they're already way behind where they wanted to be at this point in this process. I mean, they've had teams that were further behind than they were leapfrog them. And now, I mean, well, the one that sticks out big time to me is the Orioles. How they fell just short of the playoffs.
Winning record this season.
Winning record. I know. I mean, they fell just short of the playoffs, but look at the leap they took. I mean, now they have something to build on. Where who knows? Even in that in that loaded division where 3 teams are making the playoffs. So I mean, that's just one example. But I don't know. I really don't. The hunch is probably this is someone that's probably going to be, jumping at the chance to have their first managerial job in the major leagues. And, hopefully it's someone that, that looks like, the up and coming coach that deserves a shot to maybe do something. But again, and in that, not to get too far on a rant, but, check out our previous episodes where we ranted plenty about how that job itself has changed dramatically from being someone that truly calls the shots in the dugout to more of just the rah guy and team morale guy.
Yep. Yeah. So we have the managerial search, shakeups that are going to be happening and have already started to happen in baseball operations. The Marlins have already let go of director of player development, Jeff DeGroot, who basically oversaw everything on the minor league side.
Yeah, these are the important changes, what you're talking about right now.
As well as director of pro scouting, Hadi Rod, as well as 5 of their pro scouts. And Kim Eng, when we talked with her on, I believe it was either Friday or Saturday, all the days are a blur at this point. It was Friday. What day is it? She said that more changes are coming, which is to be expected. I'm expecting something, and this is just from my observations of how the team has performed. I'm expecting something to happen probably in the analytics department. I would think more comes in the scouting departments in some way, shape, or form. And could see some things even higher up in the front office in some of these VP type roles, some VP AGM type roles. Again, at this point, after 5 years, I don't think anybody can truly say they're safe outside of Kim, who Bruce Sherman gave the vote of confidence for to come for at least 1 more year.
There is and I'll just phrase it this way: there is a not good enough problem, deep-rooted not good enough problem in this franchise in terms of talent acquisition and evaluation. And I say not good enough because I don't want to say complete 100% failed, because there have been here and there some successes in finding guys, whether it's through trade or through the drafts, but the majority, and that's what reflects on the results that they've had, where changes are needed. And like you said, though, you named them all right now, those are the big issues that I think have to be resolved, obviously, in this offseason, or else this is going to just stay in a rut the way it is.
Yep. Yes, it is. And we probably be talking about it a lot this offseason. And of course, all the normal offseason stuff, arbitration, free agency, what the roster turnover will look like, and obviously find bats. I feel like I've said this at this point last year. Find bats.
Find bats, but you can't neglect pitching either.
No,
because again, I feel like I'm the we both have talked about it. You can't sit on the pitching and say, oh yeah, we're fine. That constantly needs to be replenished, and I think it's not. Again, I say again, it's not, the depth is not as much. It's still a deep staff, but it's not as much as it was before, and that in a blink of an eye could get even worse. So, but yes, the bats, of course. I mean, that's yesterday. Or needed that yesterday. Needed that 2 years ago.
Yep.
At this point, and that's where that not good enough acquisition and development problem steps in.
Correct. Yep. And with that, that's going to do it for us on this week's episode of Fish Bites. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. And we will touch base with all of you again this offseason. Thanks so much.